Hi, this is Bridget Conley. I'm Research Director at the World Peace Foundation, and I'm really pleased today to be able to speak with Stacey Borden. Stacey's the founder and president of New Beginnings, a reentry service. She has a master's degree in mental health counseling with a concentration in addiction and trauma. She's an author, a performance artist, a motivational speaker, and an activist. She's on the board of the organization On with Living and Learning Productions, which is a nonprofit that works with formerly incarcerated women in dynamic workshops that deploy storytelling methods to work through challenging past, creating art that heals individuals and builds self-esteem and helps develop their skills that will enable successful reentry to society. She is also a board member of Families for Justice is Healing, which is one of Massachusetts' strongest women-led organizations that works for really transforming mass incarceration in the state. It's by and for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women and girls and women with loved ones who are locked up. She's also a member of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls, and is a member of the Association for Addiction Professionals. Stacey, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thank you for having me, Bridget.
So I just read from your bio all the things that you have accomplished and that help testify to the leadership role that you're playing as a leader in reentry and also in trauma counseling. But I wonder if you could start and take us back, around some 10 years ago and talk about, or maybe that isn't the right place, you can tell me, but talk about your journey to becoming the leader that you are today.
So, well, of course, it started way beyond 10 years suffering my own trauma in and out of prison from my addictive behaviors that led into the criminal activity, that led into the criminal justice system. And so just bring it back to 10 years, the women that I lived with over the years in and out of Framingham for a greater part of 30 years, pretty much were raising me unknowingly. I didn't realize I was being nurtured, I was being loved, I was being cared for. I was, the little girl inside of me was learning how to play and come outside of myself. And each time I came out of the prison, I didn't have that connection, and there was no resources to really help navigate me through my trauma, and not even realizing I was in trauma. 12 years ago, wrapping up my sentence, a woman walked in my cell, and her name is Kimia Faust. She walked in my cell, and she was heavily medicated by the pharmaceutical drugs that they provide just to kind of, calm you down, sedate you, but she was overly medicated. And she walked in and she had on white uniform, which indicated she must have worked in the kitchen somewhere in the prison. She wasn't in major population because I would have saw her where we have our eatery. So kind of indicated she must have been down in the Smith building where they hold pre-trial, new sentencing units. And so, I just couldn't process that she was that heavily sedated, working in the kitchen. Needless to say, we started having conversations and days went by. She realized that by then I had got an opportunity to have a job in the library. I was kind of helping young women do their revise and revokes, really trying to counsel them unknowingly that that's what I was doing. But that's what I was doing, was really trying to get them to see these minor offenses can grow into big offenses. And when she realized that I had that type of job, she asked if I could read her transcripts. And so I started reading her story. The transcripts was so revealing that I couldn't process how a state can take a young woman who was a victim in the same office that she became a defendant in. And I say that to say that when Kimia was 12 years old, she had a violent rape. There was a gentleman who violently raped her. Now, we all know the trauma, the effects that happens at that stage and age. She's just coming into puberty. She's just coming into her life, her artistry and all that stuff that young kids get into. Well, it got blocked and it was interrupted. And she became a victim in Suffolk County's DA's office. This is all processes in my own head that I'm saying, my God. At the same time, it was revealing to me because I said, wow, I come from sexual abuse at that early age. I come from a rape at 18. No wonder this revolving door continues to happen in and out of this carceral system. This is so unfair. But not so much about me, but she was sentenced to a 19 to 20-year manslaughter charge. And so I started reading further. And what was revealed was her plea was actually she was charged with first degree if she didn't take a 19 to 20. The more I read, at 29, she was in a room with a gentleman that lured her in the room to get high, to smoke crack. Well, he hit her upside the head with a 2x4 to sexually assault her. She automatically picked up the butter knife in his room that he had in his room, and she stabbed him to get him off of her. Mm-hmm. He hit her again. Now, this is what she told the police happened because her blood was on the 2x4. That indicates self-defense. Mm-hmm. Well, the second time she stabbed him, unfortunately, he lost his life. Mm-hmm. So in my head, I'm saying, wow, they medicated her, sedated her, obviously, so she wouldn't have to endure that type of pain. But secondly, maybe they sedated her further so she could go ahead and take the plea and be done with it so they could have a win. Not one lawyer, not one clerk's office or person in a clerk or not one judge, no one ever said, oh my God, she was a victim when she was 12 in the same office.
And she was a victim as an adult as well.
And she was a victim as an adult.
Yeah.
So they force you to take these pleas or you get a life sentence. That's a heavy burden on oneself to have to endure that. That is criminalizing her over and over again. And so that for me changed my world forever. As I started going on the quest to fight for our rights in the prison, she in turn helped me really develop my own self-esteem, my own confidence that was so low, and allowed me to really play. She taught me like how to dance and sing. I still can't dance and sing, but it was fun. My little girl self was connected to my womanhood. And I just said, you know what? When I leave out of here, I'm never going to use drugs again. I'm never going to come back to this sense of a sentence. It's so degrading. When you come into the prison system, you're being strip searched. You're being talked about and degraded by the male officers. You're being ridiculed because of the crime you did. And, it's like no humanistic values in any of it. And so I've been on a quest. I came home March 2010. I made a promise to the women back in prison that I was going to get out and do something different. When I really started seeing the world inside the walls, that women were being released after 10, 20, 30 years on parole, they were back in 3 months, Bridget. I had a problem with that. Yeah. I knew then that that's why I kept coming out, because nothing was out here for us. So I said, maybe I need to go to school and figure out what this trauma and addiction really is. What happened to me? And how can I start articulating it and really, kind of tell my story without the anger and the resentments and all the stuff that builds up inside of us that we can't even express what our emotional states are because we've numbed it so much through drugs and alcohol. And so I came out of prison 2010 March, and I made parole because I knew then I heard something in my mom say, we're waiting for you. And so I said, wow, even they're aging. You just think your parents are supposed to be. Never go nowhere, never age. When I came home, I was like, wow, they're elderly. And so I needed to sit still. Something my older sister, Pat, would always say to me through my sentences, sit still, you'll get answers, Stace. And so at that moment, I sat still and I reflected how much they loved me, how much they were supporting me, how much they kept coming to bail me out, how much my dad worked in Suffolk Superior Court as a court officer, would bust in the courtrooms and tell the judges, this is my child, you're not sending her away. And all that just came to fruition. the girls in prison, and my family. That was my connection to the world. And so they started being diagnosed with terminal illness. And I had that 1 year, and I said, Stace, practice what you learned from the sisters in there. No regrets. Don't look back on all that old stuff. Clean it up. And this is your opportunity to just love your parents while they're alive and make sure that they know that you're going to be okay so they can transition well. It was the most extraordinary process I've ever endured. I was present with both my parents. And then I wrote back to Kimmy and said, okay, mom and dad's gone, sis. I got to go to school. And she guided me through that. She said, remember the work you was doing when you was in BU. Remember the writing you was doing. And remember to play. I get emotional when I think about what she taught me, the great lessons in that. And so I went on a journey and I went to school.
It's it's a stunning story of love and connection between people, and passing the baton, and just hoping that 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 support and that network can produce something wonderful.
Wonderfully beautiful. And it just changed my life forever. And so for the past 10 years, I was determined to get a house.
Mm,
That's all I thought about. I need to get a house. I need to put some beds in it. And I need to give the women all the love and support they gave back to me.
yeah.
And then I realized it's not about what I can do. It's about the power of connection of community. As to how I ran into Mary Driscoll, who's a brilliant writer for women's rights and women's stories. And we went into workshops. And then here's the playtime that Kimmy had told me about. Get on stage and just be free. Well, I still had some fears in that. And so we did workshops, and then we started reading our stories. And then voila,
Mm,
Mary Driscoll was so brilliant that she hired actresses to tell our stories in a play, Hidden Faces of Courage. And when
mm,
I saw my story play out, it was such a healing moment for me. I said, wow, there's so much power in your truth. I can't be shamed and continue to feel the fear of putting a burden on my family of what happened to me. It's my story. And
mhm.
hopefully they can heal through that too, through all the dysfunction, through all the community dysfunction, through all the poverty and all the stuff that goes with that. And so we did the play. And then through the play, I was able to meet this wonderful woman named Andrea James. We kept running in the same circle. Andrea James is my mentor. She's the founder of both Families for Justice is Healing and the National Council for Incarcerated and Former Incarcerated Women and Girls. How great was that? That the universe could provide such truth or such power. Having these type of visions, it just kept being aligned with what my ideology was building, how I was really building a structure of connection and community.
So, your story is amazing. I mean, it's um, there's so much richness in there, and so much love and support. And I guess what's amazing to me too is to think, we think of prison as a way to keep society safe by putting dangerous people, by isolating them. And what I hear you saying is no, that we make things better when we connect.
Yes, yes, because what society is doing or what the system has created is causing more harm. If we can just change that dialogue, have a different narrative, and look at women or look at people that have been hurt,
Yeah.
neglected, traumatized, or whatever their story is, we should not continue to punish them in that type of punitive way and force them into a whole different culture that is not helpful at all. It's actually harmful.
Yeah.